Hi, I'm Emily.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is In A Barbie World.
The podcast where we look at every Barbie movie from 1987 to the present day.
From fairy tales to literary classics.
From Mariposa to Mermaidia.
It's time to get unboxed.
Readjust your lippy.
Rock the ball gown.
And let's get our Barbie on.
Barbie. And the magic of Pegasus.
It's a new one, isn't it? I wasn't seeing that particular construction. It's not as, if, is, colon. And it's bigger than that though, isn't it? It's the magic of Pegasus 3D.
In 3D. Yeah, it's very exciting. I didn't watch it in 3D. I don't know if I missed out.
No, so once again, my I watched this one a bit of a different way. So I did have the DVD, which did have those red and green glasses, which was a bit odd because I thought, but I'm not sure if that's how it was. But anyway, that's. I think someone might just put them in there because it's secondhand eBay spend. Anyway, I did wish it, but I found the copy on the internet in a format called DivX, right? Which is one of the first sort of file formats for movies. So we had MPEG, and then now we have MKVs, don't we, in AVO? But DivX was this one which is meant to have copy protection built into it. It would have to go online to make sure you're allowed to watch this DivX thing. This one just worked. But I thought, oh my god, how old is this film? 2005 sounds like a lifetime ago to you, I'm sure. To me, I'm like, oh my god, how pirating films off the internet has changed. But I have got it. I just had to pirate it to watch it.
Amazing.
There you go. There's a side avenue you didn't know we were going down. But yes, it is allegedly in 3D.
Yeah, I had the DVD. It was not in 3D, but what the DVD does come with always is the DVD menu, and it was very quiet for a Barbie DVD menu. Usually she starts chatting away the second you've like pushed it in. But she was like quite silent, and I was like, oh my god, is Barbie okay? Like she hasn't spoken to me at all yet.
Normally she's a bit sassy, isn't she?
She's like so all over it. She's all over the menu, and I've gotten like 3 menus in and no one had said a word, and I was like, fuck, Barbie, like, you all right? And then finally I pressed play, and she said, I love watching movies with friends like you. But as she said that, a Shelly with wings came up to the camera and like winked at me, and that's when I realized what the problem has been this whole time. The Shelly Kelly creature is always like an adult trapped in a child's body.
Yeah,
they act way older than they look, and I'd not figured that out before. But they never act like children. They're always like mini adults, and that is why they're so freaky.
So this is like Chucky, isn't it? This is like all those ventriloquist doll films. These dolls with their big heads. I mean, they all look like Funko Pops before Funko Pops are a thing, and with their dead eyes.
And they have a maturity and an ability to speak well beyond their like 6-year-old bodies.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Weird.
I think you found why we don't like Shelly Kelly. Oh, well, the heads are too big, their eyes are too big, and they're kind of a little bit sexualized as well.
Oh, so sexualized.
And you feel really uncomfortable. And she's a bit of a whingy moaner, but that whole thing's gone. Although saying that, so this is a weird old film, isn't it? Because it goes back. So we talked last time with the Mermaidia how things were moving in a different direction. Where it was about selling toys, it was about an original story. This is an original story, but feels much more like a film before Mermaidia.
It feels more like a classic fairy tale. It's got a real, like with Fairytopia, they were like, let's come up with an original story. And then they did that. Whereas here, it's like, let's come up with an original fairy tale. And they've really drawn on, like, the fairy tale. but it's still incredibly original. The only review I'd heard about this movie was from my friend who had watched the Barbie movies growing up. And she'd said that The Magic of Pegasus was one that she could never get her head around because it was so confusing. So going into this movie, I was ready to have like a clusterfuck of like mishmash of whatever. But actually, you know, I'm sure my friend was like 7 at the time, which was why she was confused. It wasn't confusing at all, and it was highly enjoyable. And just to like continue with that little story, I know her from drama school, and she was coming over. She came over from America for the year, and then she had to go back, and it was horrible. But as a parting gift, I wanted to get her Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus on DVD as like a little in-joke thing. So I went to CEX and I found it and I took it to the counter, and then there was a whole thing where this bloke like put the DVD in, and as he was like ringing it up on the register or whatever, I looked at it and I was like, excuse me, that DVD is for Barbie Mermaidia. I wanted Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, please. And he was like, oh, well spotted. And then he's like, this arduous journey where he gets like 2 other people involved to like try and specifically find Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, not Barbie and Mermaidia. And I was like, look, mate, just do your job. Like, I'm not embarrassed like about this because I came in here with the intention to buy a product from you, and the least you could do is sell it to me correctly.
So just for our non-British audience, of which I'm assuming we have some, CEX, as you call it, is it's a high street. Well, it stands for Computer Exchange, I think. Believe it or not, you are meant to call it sex. That is what I believe the owners of the brand would like you to call it.
But well, they can jog on.
Yeah, they can fuck right off because I went to sex. But they basically are an exchange. We used to have these a lot more in the UK, but they've kind of. There used to be shops where you could you can take your computer games that you've played and your CDs and your DVDs, and then they'd give you a pittance in return. And that's kind of what they do. And you'll find it's full of old DVDs, loads of kids' DVDs, and lots of PlayStation 2 games. And but I have to admit, but they're not just that. They also do like it's like a pawn shop in some ways, isn't it? Where people seem to pawn their musical instruments or their computer equipment and things like that. But it's on pretty much every town's got a CEX, hasn't it? CEX. So, but basically what they have is they have these filing cabinets behind the counter full of all the DVDs. So I can just imagine this guy in his in his Motorhead t-shirt, looking at you behind his fringe, with his pimple face, tromping along, trying to find it where someone's basically misfiled it. And yeah, I've been there. I've been there with like, Asian movies, and they're like exactly the same story, you know.
Because they just pick up a Barbie DVD and they're like, that'll fucking do. That looks like pastel coloured.
Yeah.
Bung it in, and you're like, excuse me, sir.
And the system is meant to be a little better than that, but But it's one of the mainstays of the British high street. Now we don't have record shops anymore or anything like that, but everywhere has a CEX. It's like, and it's a similar story in the mall. Right, sorry.
So that's my fun little sidetrack about Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus, which is very fun in that it opens in like a snowy mountain landscape world, which is nice because we've sort of been in summer forever up until this point.
Yeah, it has felt like that, hasn't it?
So we get Barbie on ice, which must be a thing.
Well, I think pretty certain after the last episode, I'm sure that if there isn't a Barbie on ice of any of this, there should be. But it's really nice because I think ballet, I do feel, is a bit of an elitist thing, right? Yes, lots of 6-year-old girls do ballet, but really, who really follows ballet into later life? There's a class element to it. Whereas ice skating lives in 2 worlds. There is a classist element to it as a sport, and I use the word sport broadly, But
Be
ice
careful.
dancing, yeah, but ice dancing, any, I, I, I don't like sports, and I'm rabbiteering that have a subjective view on the
Right.
score. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's not that I don't think that ice dancing is really fucking amazing and really difficult to do, and I could never do it. I just don't think it's a sport because it's up to judges and rules. I feel the same about gymnastics. I feel the same about
Hmm.
trampolining, which my daughter, one of my daughters did to quite a high level. And the frustration is you get to a point where, as if you're in the scene, you understand it all. Yeah, and
Hmm.
where all the points are coming from and getting taken off and understand the politics of it. But if you're just trying to watch and enjoy it, it
Hmm.
becomes quite a, it's a subjective experience, isn't it? So therefore, it's not
Yeah.
a sport. Yeah, we don't
Fair enough.
people don't watch football and say that goal's worth more because it was more beautifully executed. So maybe
It's
sport's the wrong
true.
word.
But then,
However,
yeah.
however,
That's a big old argument.
that's not for this show. But however, it's really nice. And so my point is that there's also this secondary thing about ice dancing, which is everyone can do it. So in the UK, and I know in the States, there's ice rinks, and you can go Saturday morning, rent a pair of ice skates, and bumble around the um the the ice skating rink, yeah.
Mm.
Which I feel is more egalitarian than um ballet dancing, yeah.
Yeah.
I can go ice skating with my kids. I
Hmm.
can't go ballet dancing with my kids unless I'm
Yeah, that's
Rudolph
very
Nureyev
true.
or something like that. So I thought it was really nice. I think what
Mm.
the fuck she's doing on this mountain with a remarkable amount of ice is a bit mental, but that's not the worst she does on this. And we've got classical music back.
Yes, the whole thing is scored by basically Beethoven,
Mm,
which was an interesting choice. So you've sort of mentioned it already, how they're almost trying to hark back to the earlier movies, the trilogy almost,
mm.
where the whole score is essentially Beethoven. We've got what seems to be some sort of rotoscoped ice skating, and it's a fairy tale, but it is an entirely original fairy tale.
Mm.
In a very anti-Disney move, classic Barbie, this princess has a mum, which is always nice to see, a mum and a dad, and they're incredibly overprotective. Whereas Princess Annika is our main character, and she is fucking awesome. Like, she is such a good role model. Like, we've always talked about how these Barbie leading ladies are good in that they're often resourceful and honest and kind. This one is like sassy and brave. She's like, it's you know what it is? It's very 90s. This whole
Girl power.
movie is very 90s. She's incredibly outspoken and like brave to the point of stupidity, but also very, very clever and quick in a crisis, which is, I'd never seen anything like it. I'd never seen a leading lady like this. I thought it was amazing.
I mean,
Um,
she is a little bit bratty at the beginning. She has a,
yeah,
and I could just
but
hear my teenage daughters starting going, "Oh,
it's
you're so."
understandable.
But it absolutely is. You get it as the story unfolds. You understand it from both sides as well, don't you? That which is interesting.
Yeah,
But see, there is a bit
yeah.
of, "Oh, you're so horrible to me," and on my birthday as well. And it's
But
like,
it's true.
but
She
it
had
is
snuck out
true.
to go ice skating, and then she brings back a polar bear with eyelash extensions.
Right, hang on. And we just need to talk about this, right? One, kids, don't pick up wild animals and bring them home, right? That's bad. Secondly, don't go fucking near a polar bear. It will eat you.
And it's
Polar
gonna
bears are,
grow.
polar bears
That
are one
polar
of the most
bear.
dangerous animals in the world. Polar bears kill more people than fucking great white sharks do. And don't bring them home, eyelash extensions or not. Right,
Yeah.
public safety notice over. She brings home a fucking
It's
polar bear.
and it's mute. It's mute in the sense that it doesn't have human dialogue. Instead, it has really annoying little noises. And it's cold. When she first meets it, it like shivers on the ice. this never comes back as a character trait. She just shivers this one time, and so Barbie's like, I'm going to call you Shiver, which, you know, hats off, is a fucking great name for a polar bear. Like, well done, whoever came up with this character. The concept of it, a baby polar bear with, like, blush and eyelashes that's called Shiver. Perfect. Adorable. So 2000s. I'm all on board. But it never shivers again. It being cold, it has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. It's never showcases a problem. And it's attracted to shiny jewellery, which sort of pays off, but also doesn't.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I'm assuming there's a toy.
Oh, there's a plush toy.
Yeah, but what I will say is this is
version.
unnecessary because we have fucking Pegasuses in it. Pegasi? I don't know. Yeah, we have winged.
It's so true.
We have winged horses. We don't need the little sloth,
sidekick.
little sloth-like thing that doesn't. I mean, Bibble was annoying. I have to say, I am going to put. Does the polar? Oh, Shiver. You've just talked about it. Yes. Shiver is the most annoying sidekick so far, as I'm concerned.
So far, and like we've had quite annoying speaking sidekicks that are like whatever. But it's almost because it doesn't speak, and mixed with the way it looks, it's annoying. And like when I'm skipping ahead a bit, but when we first meet the like Ken character, she does this like fawning, like kind of bullshit, and again, it's so 90s, and I'm so used to Barbie not relying on these 90s tropes that again I'm going to go way into.
And we are going to talk about this later because there is yeah, we'll talk about it later, but I talked about the sexualization of Shelly Kelly earlier.
Oh my god.
Yeah, there's going to be some weird shit going down in this film that is a bit odd, but hey ho. Let's continue on because
So very quickly Annika is grounded and immediately breaks curfew and goes down to the ice rink. Everyone knows that she's the princess, so she's not been hidden that well. And they're all having a good time on the ice and it's fine. And then the plot turns up very, very quickly as the Northern Lights appear, and everyone's like, oh shit, and I'm like, what, guys? It's the Aurora Borealis. It's beautiful. Like, you should all be getting your cameras out. But no, it's not. It's our main antagonist, who is the 90th villain to have ever 90s. He comes down on a griffin and he unmounts and he goes, wow, you are the most beautiful woman I've ever seen. I shall take you for my wife. And I was like, oh, here it is. 6 movies in, they ran out of ideas because they'd been doing so well. I think I said about Rothbart in Swan Lake not falling into this trap and how refreshing that was. And it's taken them 6 movies, and we're here. Someone's gone, ugh, let's just make him want her to be his wife because she's really hot. Like, let's just do that. Like, come on,
all I've written in my notes is Wenlock, which is this fella's name, is a douche. And I think that pretty much covers it all because you're quite right. His motivation is a little bit Bluebeardy, isn't it? Actually,
yeah.
Because there's more on that later. But also he's like says all these postmodern things like bonus round and like what?
Yeah.
And it is, and it has got this kind of 90s were terribly
it's
guilty
so
of sort of postmodernism and having sort of people speak anachronistically and everyone's a fucking stand-up comedian. Do you know what I mean?
And all of the villains just want to marry the leading ladies. Like, that is their entire motivation. They just want, you're hot, let's get married. And like, that was the whole thing. And like, if it wasn't clear enough, straight after he said, I'm gonna marry you, Barbie says something like, who the fuck are you, mate? And he goes, ho ho, feisty as well, my favourite, or some bullshit like that. Like, I may have mentioned it before, but the classic, like, hey, I don't appreciate you crash landing on my ice skating party and threatening to kidnap and marry me. And that is interpreted by these fucking douchebags as, oh, so feisty.
I
And
mean,
it's no.
the only thing he didn't do is give her a pat on the bum, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
But you know what? Within this movie's context, I don't mind it. Because of what they're doing, where they're doing this original fairy tale thing, I think this villain fits this movie. Because the next thing he says is the king and queen rush out and they're like, for fuck's sake, Wenlock, please fuck off. We hate you. And Annika is like, you know him? And then Wenlock drops the biggest bomb where he's like, remember your other daughter? And you're like, what? And they're like, no. And Annika's like, another daughter? And then he freezes everyone into stone. And he's like, you have 3 days until sunset to be my bride or I'll never unfreeze them. And she's like, what? And then a Pegasus turns up out of fucking nowhere and sweeps her up into the clouds.
A pinky purple, sexy Pegasus.
Oh, a very sexy horse lady.
Yeah.
And I was fucking hooked. I was like, this is awesome. What do you mean another daughter? Like, what the actual fuck? And then it doesn't take long before we find out, but we have to do the coy little like, who are you, Pegasus, weird, sexy Pegasus horse?
I really did think about you because I know that sometimes some of the plot twists in these Barbie movies have been beyond you. Well, once it was. But I was thinking of you. I was thinking, I wrote down in my notes, oh, I hope Emily picks up that that's her sister.
I did because, again, a la the 90s, this horse does the, like, coyest eye flicking where her eyes, like, go up, then down, then up, then down, then basically straight to camera to be like, oh, me? I'm just a friend. And you're like, oh, okay, cool, that's the sister. I'm with you.
I mean, there's no doubting that this is the sister. That's literally just been announced. But let's just talk about the design just for a second. So,
yeah,
there's no little My Little Pony about this, because the eyes on this thing are fucking massive, right? In a true My Little Pony stroke anime style. Sort of big eyes are sexy, but you are meant to think this horse is hot, right?
Yeah.
With wings and its colorization, and it's really uncomfortable. But it's not the only interspecies sexiness which goes on in this film, and it really bothers me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of this, and then of course there's other Pegasi, which the Shelly Kelly triumvirate ride that are just Pegasuses.
Yeah, they're not so.
But they're still sexy.
Detailed.
They've still got sexy big eyes because I went back and checked.
Yeah, but they're not. They're not as detailed. And
no.
And it's because it's Last Unicorn vibes, where it's like that horse is a woman, kind of thing. But it's
Although, that's an interesting reversal, isn't it? Because if you think in proper mythology, not Mattel mythology, you think of things like you have the half man, half horse, the senator.
Yeah.
Which again is, and I think Zeus probably went down as a horse and impregnated some women in one of his trips down. The man as horse is quite a common trope, yeah, or even as man as hoofed animal. You know, you think about a satyr or a minotaur, whereas women as hoofed animal is not coming from that world at all. So that's really kind of interesting. I can't think of many. Well, yeah, normally women are just women, aren't they?
Fantasia has the like female centaurs, but again,
that's
40s.
I'm just thinking historically, the female mythological characters basically tended to look like women, except that they had
Yeah.
fishtails or they had snakes for hair, but they were still very sexual. They're probably, think of most of them
Yeah, like
around fairy,
nymphs and dryads and
yeah,
like
and
that sort of thing.
yeah, even sirens and things like that.
Sirens, yeah.
That we
Yeah,
don't get
so we
that.
don't usually get this sort of thing. And I
Mm.
mean, it's great. Like, it's really dark. But also, what the fuck is the timeline on that? How old is Brietta
So
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 that Barbie doesn't know she exists?
I'm thinking of this as well. So the story that we get told, so it all comes out very quickly that she's a sister.
Mm,
Barbie works it out herself, actually, or Princess
yeah.
Annika, whatever her name
Well,
is.
no, the Shelly, like, tells her. She's like,
Oh, that's
that's
right.
your sister. She's like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, but she's not that fucking shocked. So my guess is that this is probably Barbie's. Well, we could go a bit. Let's pretend it's back in the, sort of sort of Dark Ages. Let's call it Dark Ages Europe. So she could be like 14.
She could be 14. I would argue that she's 16.
I'm going to go for 16. Feel comfortable with 16 with some of the things that happen
Yeah.
later, right?
Yeah.
Which means that if she isn't going to remember her sister, that's got to have happened latest when she was 2.
Yeah.
There's no way, especially if there's nothing else to think about. There's no
Mm.
internet here. There's no Instagram to forget about your long lost sister. There's going to be a memory of something like that, and it's not mentioned. So I'm going to say that Summer, Barbie's sister, is 14 years older than her, maybe 16 years older.
Right.
I mean, maybe they had Annika after
After Brianna left.
after a
But
replacement
Brietta,
sister.
what is her name? Brietta? Brianna?
Something ridiculous.
Brietta.
Brietta.
So, like... It,
But she doesn't
yeah,
look
like,
any different later on.
no, she looks like she's max 18.
Yeah, but I was
And then the
wondering.
mum looks like she's 25.
I've written down a word I'm not going to say in front of another lady, but I've said the mum looks about the same age as Barbie. I mean, I tell you, whether she's using it, don't crack, love. She's looking hot. Is Barbie's mum in this one? But
Literally, and it's fine. I get it. It's a Barbie movie. It's just I find that quite disconcerting that Brietta is.
I'm all right because
so much older.
what I've decided is that she's not 30, but that her age has frozen while she's in as the time she spends as the Pegasus is time her human body hasn't aged. So they come out. So instead of having a sister a sister mum, that's twice your age, and lots of awkward questions about, were you an accident or not? Don't have to have that. Now they're just decent age gap, 2 years.
Same age.
So
Much.
Wenlock's basically done her a favour.
Yeah.
Who turned her into a Pegasus, by the way? Was it Wenlock?
It was Wenlock. So Wenlock in a flashback, Wenlock turns up, and it's the king, the queen, and Brietta just chilling in the palace, and he said, "I'm going to marry your daughter," and the king said, "Over my fucking dead body." And then Brietta's done nothing at this point. He turns her into a Pegasus.
That's right.
And then she decides to leave because the king and queen are just super bummed out. Which, it's like, I know I'm a horse, mum and dad, but I can still talk and I'm still here. And like, clearly as soon as she left, the king and queen were just like, should we get pregnant again? Like, let's just replace her. Like, there's none of these.
Oh, the king's going, that was a sexy horse. That's really got me excited, even though that is my daughter. Let's go and make another one.
There's none of these awkward questions.
It's funny
like,
isn't it?
Hey, did you like abandon me? Did you hate me when I turned into a horse? Like, because in the Wikipedia summary or whatever, it's like when Brietta refused to marry Wenlock, he turned her into a Pegasus. But that's not even what happened. The king turned her down on her behalf. She said nothing in that whole scene, and she gets the punishment. Really, this should be a movie about them rescuing their dad who's been turned into a Pegasus.
Which would be more traditional, I think. It is weird it's never really discussed. It's
Yeah,
just
and
it's
like
just not
she's
an
totally
issue.
chill with it. She's like, "Oh, I'm not an only child." Instantly, she just sees that as an opportunity to be remorseful about her bratty behavior,
Mm.
instead of being like, "I'm sorry, my parents lied to me this whole time and not gave me good reason to stay indoors this whole time." Like, because as well, this is just like a silly thing, but they're like, "We'd much prefer you, Annika, to stay in your bedroom the whole time because we're scared when you leave the palace." They were in the palace when Wenlock attacked and turned Brietta into a horse. It's not like she was wandering by herself.
Yeah, although I think her
So
mother
it's just
admits
a
she's
couple
maybe.
of things like that I'm like, writers, just go over a second time and just make sure
Yeah, and
everything absolutely makes sense.
there's another bit where it's explained that the king and queen moved to a remote bit of the kingdom to try and hide from him, yet remains the king and queen.
Yeah. In a
Therefore,
huge palace that looks over all of the town.
but it doesn't really matter. So they may have moved out of London to go and move to, I don't know, Gladstone or somewhere, but they're still the fucking king and queen. They're still in
Yeah.
charge. They're not going to hide the location very long. This is the
Of the
most.
monarchs.
This is just a non. This is non-hiding. This is weird.
Literally.
But
So yeah, so Barbie's got a sister in this movie who you can buy as a doll, as both the Pegasus and as a princess. She wears pink dresses, and she's great. She's really pessimistic, and like understandably so. Like, let's assume she was 16 when Wenlock turned her into a Pegasus. She then her parents were so unhappy with the state of her being a horse that she ran away to the Cloud Kingdom, and she's just been sort of chilling there for 16 years. And then Annika turns up and she's like, "Let's fucking save the day." And kind of understandably so, Brietta is like, "No, it's not going to work. Nothing works. Everyone hates me and nothing is good." And I kind of liked that about her. Like, she never gets over her pessimism. And it means that Annika has to be overly optimistic. But it makes sense.
I would have liked it though if there was a bit of a. Again, this is a Barbie movie. You can't have too much. But if there'd been a sense that Brianna had been looking after her sister the whole time, so you know the event at the beginning where we see her
Yeah.
ice skating around and she bumped, instead of the whole shiver thing, if she'd got into some minor peril and then a purple whoosh had
Yeah.
saved her from an avalanche or something like that.
Yeah.
Just so we know that her sister had been looking out for her for the last 16
Definitely.
years. I thought that would have been
So much
quite a
better.
nice touch, you know?
And then it would have been a really nice thing for Annika to have been like, "It's been you all my life. Whenever blah, 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 blah. It was always you." And then she'd be like, "I've been looking out for you for a long time, Annika." And she'd be like, "Wow, I never knew I had a sister." And then the movie can continue as normal. But yeah, absolutely. That instead of having Shiver, who is given far too much screen time for a mute animal,
Oh,
that would have been way better.
there's also
Rather than it just being like dropped in like 10
Yeah.
minutes into the movie, like bam.
this Cloud Kingdom as well. I just want to explore a little bit, right? So firstly, there's I forget what the name of the lead lady's called. Rayla.
Rayla.
I mean,
the Cloud Queen.
I don't really know what her deal is. She's of no use in this film at all.
Literally no use.
But again, we get a lot of these in these films. These sort of pseudo powerful women that don't seem to have any power. If you remember back in
It was Swan
Swan
Lake,
Lake,
where
Swan
she
Lake.
like could
Oh,
only
God.
use her magic when the plot required.
Yeah, that's right. And we had it in Mermaidia as well to a degree, where we have the Azalea, whatever her name was, the one that sort of basically inspires Barbie to go off and do something. Fairytopia, not Mermaidia.
Yeah.
But she just assists the plot, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas, but actually, she is kind of powerful because she's one of the Guardians, but she's going to allow herself to be kidnapped. And so
Yeah.
I think Rayla's a bit like this. And then we have the Shelly Kellys, who are known as Rose, Blush, and Lilac, whose jobs are to colour in the clouds every time the sun sets or rises, which is a very specific role the only
Yeah.
the only fantasy that happens in this film is Wenlock's magic, from whom every other fantasy creature comes from.
Mm.
Yeah, the griffin, Brietta, and the trolls that he looks after all come from his magic. There's no other
Hmm.
magical creatures apart from these three, who just paint the clouds twice a
Yeah,
day. It's a weird thing, isn't it?
it's very strange. Like, they could have had Brietta shack up anywhere,
Mm.
and they chose to put her in a cloud kingdom with a queen that is fucking useless. Like, and you hear that Wenlock stole his powers from a great sorcerer or whatever, and it's going to take the Wand of Light to defeat him. But we never meet this sorcerer. Like, why not make Rayla the Cloud Queen the sorcerer who has lost her power and it's been corrupted by darkness, which is why she's useless, and make her shack up in, like, I guess it's meant to be the opposite. He's in like an ice kingdom and she's in like a cloud kingdom, and it's but I don't know, just like give her
Clouds and ice,
a
they're
bit more
opposites.
relevance to the plot. As I say, it's like someone pushed this out. Someone watched a bunch of 90s movies,
Mm.
pushed this out after the first draft, and everyone just sort of went with it. And because of the 90s in me, I really, really liked it.
You're all right with
Like,
it. I just feel
really
that
like it. It's
I
just a missed opportunity, like so many of them are.
there's just bits of this. I think this is two drafts short.
Yeah.
Of just, if you just gave it a little bit more nudging at the beginning, some of the backstory, because the rest of the movie is excellent.
It's got some really great concepts. I
Yeah.
love a fucking kidnapped older sister who's been turned into a Pegasus. I love a Ken that's been, like, sent to the Forbidden Forest through his own shame. I love Wenlock and everything that he does and stands for. Like, it's very dark.
What I'm going to tell you is this is the first one I'd want to see in a live action movie.
Yes, honestly, I was thinking that. And also I want a movie, which I might just go and write now. I want a movie where we are in a fantasy world like the 80s. We had Willow, we had The Neverending Story, we had all of these fantasy worlds that everyone was just happy to go to in cinema, which we don't see so much anymore. And we're in a fantasy world, and the first 10 minutes is someone's something, be it husband, sister, mother, getting transformed back from being an animal for like 20 years or whatever, and then the movie is them dealing with having lived as an animal for however long, or like a magical troll creature thing. Like, we never see the aftermath. Like, you've had to shit like a horse for 16 years and now you've got a human body again. You're gonna have to walk on 2 legs instead of 4. You don't have a tail anymore. You're not gonna chew hay in the same way because your teeth are different, but do you still have the taste for hay? Like, I don't know, maybe it would make a shit movie.
That would be brilliant. Like, the after effects of being under a magic spell is never.
Yeah.
Everyone just seems to pop out and they're human again. But yeah,
everyone's
absolutely.
Just, like, totally fine.
I'd
They're
love
like, Belle,
to.
it's me, and you're
I'd
like,
love
are
to
you
see
okay?
I'd love to. Oh, well, absolutely. There's the classic one. But I'd love to see the film. You know, Brietta. Her name is Bruschetta. What is her name?
Yeah, it's
Brietta.
Brietta, but I kept
Well,
thinking
that's
it
not
was
even a
Bruschetta.
fucking name. I hate things
know.
like that. When Brietta shits on the floor and they go, "Oh, Brietta," and she goes, "Oh, I'm sorry."
Old habits die hard.
Or she sees a fence and just desperately jumps over it or something like that, because she's got this embedded stuff. Oh yeah, there's because they kind of get in Harry Potter, isn't there, where the fella Pettigrew is it who turns into a rat.
Yeah,
Where
all of the animagi tend to have, like, especially Pettigrew, because he's been a rat for like 13 years, and he still has sort of twitch. I think that was more an actor choice. He had these like twitchy motions when he became human again.
But that would make sense to me.
Notably, Remus Lupin is a werewolf, and that affects his day to day, and it's sort of gone into in quite an interesting way, even if his backstory on Pottermore is fucking stupid. Yeah, so we've sort of dealt with it, but again, the movies never go into it because they're too busy. You know, poor Lupin and Tonk's relationship will always suffer from my husband, the Joker. Wait till you hear the news. Fuck off. That's like a whole thing, and you've just reduced it to 2 lines. I hate you.
Oh.
Yeah.
But yes, I think that would be a fantastic idea because people getting turned into other things, or like people that get turned into something inanimate.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, like, how are you having lived as a teapot for 20 years?
Oh, I mean that
Like, are you okay?
I mean, Beauty and the Beast is going to give you a lot. I mean, just the fucking Beast himself.
Yeah,
I mean,
you want a real sequel to that where they deal with the enchantment.
yeah, the PTSD of
Yeah,
being turned
the
into
Beast's in
something else.
therapy.
Oh,
Like, Mrs. Potts is in therapy.
I'd love that.
Yeah.
Are you listening, Disney? We'll write it for you.
We'll
Well,
write it.
well,
We'll
Emily,
cast it.
Emily will write
Be
it. I'll
great.
just be snarky about the whole thing.
But it's always something I think about when I see someone get turned from a mystical, magical creature back into a human. I'm like, are you gonna be good with that? Are you gonna, also one of the most famous, when the Little Mermaid gets legs, and in the movie they always miss out how fucking painful the process is and how continuously painful it is, and that she's just a bit wobbly and then like she's all right.
Do you know Supergirl has a horse called Comet?
Amazing.
Back in the sort of 60s, and Comet used to be a man that was turned into a horse and has a crush on Supergirl. And
God.
that's the vibes I was getting from this film. It's one of those sort of 60s concepts that you think, and they've played with it in the more recent past about what would a horseman be, and is this creepy, is this not, is it creepy because it's a horse, or is it not creepy because it's actually human inside? And and yes, you could
like
play
Salem
with these
in Sabrina.
These concepts that you can play with, which we're kind of interested in the other end.
Yeah,
we're not caring about them now. We want to know what it was like after the story's finished.
Yeah, after the happily ever after. Bam.
Got it. Right, come on, let's move. Let's move. We haven't got the first act done with yet.
So Rayla's fucking useless, and they basically decide that they have to go and find the Wand of Light. And in order to make the Wand of Light, it's sort of Horcruxy, where you have to get a bunch of bullshit ingredients together, and that makes the Wand of Light. So it's the measure of courage, a ring of love, and a gem of ice lit by hope's eternal flame. And very early on, you get the sense that these are not going to be physical things. Except, of course, when they are just physical things.
Yeah.
They didn't quite want to make their mind up about that, so they went with both.
And again, this poor girl has been stuck as a fucking sexy flying horse for 16 years, and she's with, and none of them ever said, well, we could give it a go. They just said, It's too hard. It's hard.
Way too hard, Brietta. Just fucking learn how to paint the clouds like we do. It's a good living.
Suck it up. There's worse things to be than a sexy horse.
Sexy flying horse. Yeah, and like, how did she know to be... Because the Cloud Kingdom is fucking miles away from where Annika lives. So how did she know to be where Annika was to save her? Or can they, like, see everything?
Because they're up high.
Like,
what is it? The Aurora Borealis? Did that appearing in the wrong place?
Did
that
like,
clue them in?
Her?
Yeah.
Which I don't appreciate the appropriation of the Northern Lights for evil. I don't think that's very fair.
Or necessarily... accurate. It's green, isn't it? Green has this negative connotation.
Evil. Yeah, it's a shame. It's very Disney of them. But yeah, so then the promise of the premise happens, which is the part of the screenplay where what you signed up for should be delivered. So if you're watching a zombie movie, this is the part where lots of people get bitten by zombies. And it's very fairy tale. The promise of this premise is fairy tale quest. So we meet various different creatures through various different means while we're trying to find these various different objects. And I think it's solid.
It's a million fairy tales, a million computer games. This is a solid storytelling technique, isn't it? Where we find out about people through the one-dimensional characters that they meet upon their journey to their quest.
Pick up the objects that may or may not be physical, actual objects, or just ideas and
And this ain't,
Thoughts?
I mean, this ain't gonna be the first or last Barbie movie that uses this technique either.
Amazing.
Yeah, I'm all right with this. You know, we enjoyed it
Yeah,
last time, didn't we, when we went on the
yeah.
quest around Mermaid, Fairytopia? So
Very true.
I can't slag it off this time. It's
No, I really like it. We Shiva falls into a giant's stew pot. Classic. Annika goes to rescue her, having met Ken, who is called Aiden, who is very good. Like, all of the Kens are always different and thoughtful and good.
and
And
this is a really interesting character
it's
because
a dark Ken. It's like a dark Ken. It's a Ken with a past.
I don't remember a Ken with many flaws before. There was some
No.
bullshit going on with that one where there were the two Kens. The
Yeah.
Princess and the Pauper one. That was there was some bullshit going on there with
Yeah.
one of the Kens pretending to be something he wasn't, but it turns out he's literally too good to be true.
Yeah.
But this one, he's a fucking gambling addict.
Yeah,
I mean-
he gets given loads of money that he then tries to triple in a game and then loses all of his money, and through his shame he forces himself to go live in the Forbidden Forest.
And turns himself into a bit of a dick.
Yeah,
Um
like defensive. Like, they have such a meet cute. They're classic 90s, like negging each other. Which again we haven't really seen before. We've always just sort of seen this classic like, why, hello there. Can I help at all? Why, no, I'm fine, thank you. Oh, okay, well, I guess I'll see you around. Yeah, I guess we will, kind of bullshit. Whereas
after I've
these
rescued Shelly
kids-
Kelly's from the pits
Yeah.
that one of our parents has placed in. No, this is I mean,
This
no,
is like
I had no doubt he was going to be the interest,
Oh my
the
god,
love
he's
interest.
a Ken. He
He's a
showed up in a
Ken.
Barbie movie.
But he's a bit darker. Although, let's face it, the sexy horse and the fucking polar bear are into him as well, right?
Oh my god.
They're fucking flirting with him with their little. I mean, it's an underage Ursine and a fucking sexy horse are going. You better jump in, Barbie, or we're going to.
And like classic, they're like, ugh, you can't go in there, can you? Just watch me. She's not really going in there, is she? Like proper like back and forth.
Oh.
Like absolute classic, like we hate each other right up until we love each other kind of thing. Which again was nice because it fitted into this like 90s fairy tale vibe. Like it's very Quest for Camelot, it's very Swan Princess, like it's all there. It was very nostalgic.
It is 2005 though.
Yeah, weirdly in 2005, but it was really fun to see. And she goes in to save Shiva from this giant, and she uses her like fairy tale wit. You know how in fairy tales it always works when you're like, hey, thing that's kidnapped me, there's a better version of you somewhere. I bet you couldn't do this. I bet you couldn't do that. I bet you couldn't release me and throw me out the window. I bet you couldn't like poke yourself in the eye with a hot poker. Like,
oh, yes,
and they
I can.
always fall
Ollie
for
could
it.
do this.
I can do everything.
Again, in my notes, all I've written is, which I think is, I sometimes take these things too literally, but that pot's going to need some water because he's just throwing vegetables and people in and a polar bear.
He's getting there. The broth comes later.
Yeah, that's not how you cook anything, right? that's the opposite. But he is a stupid giant, I suppose. So I can probably let him off for cooking everything in the reverse way
Yeah.
that you're going to need to do
They
it.
thought about that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or did they just
That's
not?
what they were spending their time thinking
Or
about.
did they think boiling Barbie and
Or did
Shiva?
they not want to animate water?
Yeah, that's probably it.
But it's fun what she does. She like outwits him. She's like, oh, there's a giant down the road who can tie himself to the pole with a chain and a lock and burst through. I bet you can't do that. And he does. And then she uses her hair ribbon to get them out. And runs away, and she's like completely cool and confident the whole time, which is really fun. And she escapes, and everyone's like, "Holy shit, you made it, Barbie!" And she's like, "Yeah,
There
it
is
wasn't
this.
even hard."
You're right. There's this lovely bit because Aiden and Brietta are saying, Brietta kind of has to talk him into saving her, and they go off to go and save her, but she sorts herself out without they're not even involved in that aspect of the rescue.
Yeah.
Now later on, he does become a bit of a white savior, but this it's just really nice in this instance for them not to be involved. That she does it all on her own. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Ollie the Giant. I don't think he's as good a character as maybe the filmmakers think he is. Spoilers for later, but it's.
This is the thing. What happens later completely rewrote all of my opinions about this character. So dumb.
Yeah, so
yeah, and it's really fun. And then the ribbon that definitely was not the same height as her is suddenly the same height as her, and Brietta's like, "Look, Annika, the ribbon, it's the same height as you." And Annika's like, yeah, I guess it is. What's your fucking point, pony? But of course, that's the measure of courage, because it's like hypothetical and a vague concept of a thing, and it starts glowing and it turns into a staff.
This could happen to anybody at any time, anywhere, one assumes. That can't be the only example of courage ever been in that whole kingdom. Because staffs would be appearing left, right and centre every day, one assumes.
Yeah.
It's a very much...
It's quite wishy-washy.
It isn't again. We could have just a little bit stronger writing. We could have... Maybe if Rayla had given her the staff to fill up with these things, that would have made more sense.
Things.
But
no, the ribbon magically turns into a staff. So we've got the concept physically transforming into a thing that's going to help us. So we'll put a pin in that and see if that continues. So we leave the giant behind and we go and talk to Ferris, who sucks. He's like a thief.
Well, he runs a pawn shop. He runs the CEX of this of this world.
Forest.
And known by Aidan. So Aidan again is shadiness in Aidan's backstory.
Dodgy friends. Like, Aidan's a bit of a edgy Ken. Got a good name as well. It's a good name.
Aidan and Annika, alliterative. They must be born to be together.
Exactly.
But yes, they this is they get a map off him, don't they?
Yeah. To
get the gem.
He was I'm not going to lie, he was quite boring. I was trying to look up the IMDb trivia while he was on screen, and of which there is none.
No,
basically
he's another one of these troll-looking like characters, but rather than
just like a D&D extra,
rather than sort of flipping it around like they did in Swan Lake, where this character, I mean, he's the same character, frankly, but in Swan Lake they flipped it around. And it turned out he was a really helpful old fella that all we wanted was a bit of company. This is just a Dickensian dick, and no interest in him.
He gives them something that's probably gonna be useless, and then immediately goes and tells Wenlock that they're like doing whatever, and everyone thinks the Wand of Light is this like mythical wives' tale that's like completely meaningless.
Except there's a map to the gem. That doesn't add up to me. I just clearly there's so much here that's showing it is a thing.
Yeah.
Why are people being such knobs about it?
Literally. It's very weird. Anyway, no one cares about Ferris. They find a staircase down into a cavern, and they find the fucking gem of what is it called? Gem of ice. They find a cavern filled with gems.
'Cause you do.
And one of them is the gem of ice. And like, that is literally a thing that we found in the ground for this wand.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a hypothetical concept that was magic. It
No,
is just a thing.
it is the thing. Unlike other things which you had to earn, where you kind of no, it's naff, and it's all happening too quickly as well.
It's happening way too quickly, and it's like, so then we go into a cave and he's trying to use his blacksmith skills to like construct this wand, which again, like, very, very quickly Brietta is like, here's my tiara, make a ring out of that. But because he was intending to blacksmith a ring. But then Brietta's like, take my crown. And because she did it with love, that becomes the ring of love. So again, it's like a magic thing that is magic. And it magically turns into a ring. And then all three things are put together and they magically start to shimmer. And you think that the wand is going to construct itself, much like how the ribbon turned into a staff earlier. And the tiara just turned into a ring. But it doesn't. He still needs to blacksmith it. But only for like 2 seconds. And then it magically puts itself together anyway. And you're just like, what? Do you want his blacksmith skills to put the wand together, or do you want the wand to be magic? Like, pick one.
Yeah, pick one and run with it. I've also realised, just as we're talking about this whole activity is to try and rescue someone who's been a horse for 16 years. There's no real rush, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole village of people, including her mum and dad, who are going to be stuck as statues for eternity. Unless they deal with that issue. Are they not dealing with the wrong issue?
Very much so.
And I can't believe I didn't spot this whilst watching the film. I'm slagging it off quite a bit in certain aspects of it anyway. And there's mostly around this quest. And the biggest issue was this is the wrong quest. And it's never really challenged, is it? That this is the wrong quest.
Yeah. There's like 3 different things that they're trying to complete, and it's all a bit higgledy-pickledy as to how we're gonna complete them all. Because the first thing they do once the Wand of Light is made is Annika's like, I'm gonna turn Brietta back into a human. And I was like, don't, Annika! You won't be able to fly.
That's right.
You're getting rid of your only method of transportation, Annika.
Yeah.
And she turns her back and she's like, wow, I'm human. You know I can't fly you anymore. She's like, shit.
Yes, when the characters point out the flaw in what you've done.
And of course it's to be able to call back to Rayla, whose only use was to give them a bell, which clearly had a one-use only spell on it, because it like vanishes once they use it, which is not fair.
She obviously watched the
and
Nutcracker.
It's like, please bring us some flying horses. And it's like, why didn't you give them flying horses in the first place? Like, that could have been a really useful gift.
They're taking the dignity away from Brietta, making her use her as a taxi.
Carry everyone around. But it's fine because Rayla sends some ponies and we head over to Wenlock's kingdom, where... No, we don't even do that. We head back to Cloud Kingdom, and Wenlock finds us randomly in the sky. Yeah, we're not even in his palace to have this showdown.
We're flying back from this place. Oh, remember, Aiden leaves them because,
Aiden says goodbye.
And,
because they didn't bring a winged pony for him.
No, and even though Shiva starts humping his leg and...
Oh, my God.
And now he's got 2 hot chicks. Only one used to be a sexy horse.
Yeah.
Keen on him. He decides to say, no, I haven't done enough. I'm going to go off on my own. After seeing all this amazing shit go down, I'm going to walk out of this story now.
I'm not going to see this through to the end. I'm going to just leave. And Annika starts it. She's like, I guess this is goodbye. And he's like, oh, okay, goodbye. But even before that, he was like, Annika's ribbon just turned into a staff by magic, and Aiden goes, the Wand of Light? That's a fucking legend. It's not real. And Annika, much like the audience, have to go, did you fucking just see what happened in front of your very eye? And he goes like, yeah, it was cool and whatever, but I still don't believe in the wand of light. Like, it just doesn't make any... It's the script writers are seeing their own stupidity and having to like write through it to be like
calling it out and then writing through it. So yeah, so they're flying back. Wenlock's on a fucking... I don't know what he's doing there.
He's on a griffin, and for what, I don't know why he's in the sky. I mean, he's been informed of what they're doing, so maybe he's
because he's been he knows where they're going because he went to see Ferris, didn't he? And then turned Ferris into a doormat.
Yes, he did.
Again, in one of those things which happens in these films that, you know, what was it?
No meaning.
Yeah, but it's a bit like in the end of Swan Lake, isn't it? Where Matey Boy is turned into a cuckoo clock. That's a pretty dark thing to be turned into.
Pretty dark. And we don't know if he's ever turned back.
No, we don't know more. We never see Ferris again, do we? So that's why he's there. He's chasing it down because he wants to get married to Barbie, doesn't he? And he wants to be his sort of 80s douche self, 90s douche self around the place.
Yeah.
And yeah, but he then says. He gets the wand off her and says, "Don't want you anyway."
Yeah, literally. What a dick. Because they like land and she like has the wand and she's like, in quite a dark move, but understandably so, because he's like knocked Brietta unconscious. She's like, destroy him! Destroy Wenlock! Destroy him! And it doesn't work. The wand is like, fuck you. So Wenlock's like, wow, takes the wand, knocks her out, and is like, I don't want you as a bride. Like, you're really fine. Annoying. You tried to kill me. Like, I'm not going to marry you anymore.
You know, that feistiness I found so unbearably attractive, I turned the whole village and your parents to stone for. I've realised this ain't going to work long term.
It's a problem for me, so I don't want it anymore. It's so dumb. And she's like buried under the ice, so you think she's like dead. But Aidan turns up because he's managed to somehow catch up on an ordinary horse and find the clearing that they were in. And they all fly back to the Cloud Kingdom again. And Aidan's there, and it's like enough people have been in peril now that they can show their true feelings to each other. So he's all like, Barbie, wake up. Oh, you're so cold. But it's fine because, like, being buried under an avalanche did nothing to her. So she's fine. And they all recuperate and decide to go to Wenlock's place together. So I don't know why she had to be knocked unconscious. Because all it did was make us go all the way back to the Cloud Kingdom to resurrect her, to then be like, okay, now let's go all the way back to Wenlock's castle.
All it did was slow down the path to where they were going to anyway.
Yeah.
Bring Aidan back into the fold, who didn't need to leave the fold.
They didn't need to go back to Cloud Kingdom, and he didn't need to leave in the first place. They could have met in that clearing and been like, right, on to Wenlock's palace, I guess.
And they could have looked, and then they could have gone back to see Ferris and say, where does Wenlock live? And said, you've turned into a doormat, let us save you with the wand of...
Yeah, with the wand of light, and now because we saved you, you're going to be nice to us.
Yeah, again, I'm not. We're rewriting this story because there's so much good stuff here. It's just two drafts too soon, I feel. But yes, so on to Wenlock's pad.
Which is super cute. It's like this big old scary ice palace that's like completely green, and it's like full of like gargoyles and like griffin creatures. And Wenlock has these 3 troll servants who, again, I saw this twist coming. Like, I saw this one a mile off.
Oh, you say that now. You say that now.
I did, because he's like, immediately, before we've even gone to his palace, he talks about how he's like, because the king is like, don't you already have a bride? And he's like, she got annoying, so I dispatched of her. And then when we get to Wenlock's palace, we see these 3 trolls who are like his servants with different coloured dresses. And you're like,
and wedding rings.
And when it reached that's those are his old wives, like,
So
clearly.
I'm going to assume that Brietta was his first, and when he realised turning into a sexy flying horse
Was not
was not
ideal.
ideal, he then moved on to turning them into trolls when he decided they weren't
I
ideal
guess
for
so,
him.
and also that the news travels, like he's in the newspaper every time he gets married because the king was aware that he had a wife.
Mm. But yeah, I wonder if he'd learnt, in a rare example of a bad guy in a movie learning a lesson, that he's learnt a better thing. Turn them into a mute servant
Yeah, yeah.
is better than turning them to a sexy flying away
A
horse.
sexy flying horse. Yeah, it's
Um,
very true.
but yes,
So he's learned a valuable
so
lesson.
can I fess up something?
Yes.
I didn't spot that till much later in the film.
Really?
But it wasn't really. I was fairly disengaged with Wenlock and his home life, and what I was thinking was not more fucking trolls. There's a lot of trolls or funguses, or that there seems to be lots of character models that Mainframe Entertainment are quite attached to, and obviously the Barbie one is fine, but the Shelly Kelly and these trolls with these big flappy noses are both things I could do without. So
That's
I
fair.
was disinterested, but I did before it was exposed to who they were.
Revealed.
I did get it, but I think I spotted their rings in a later appearance, which made me think,
Right.
they're the wives for us. So you win on this one. I'm going to fess up and say I didn't spot
In
this one.
your face. I don't think it's as big a deal as the literal whole point of Barbie and the Nutcracker and not understanding that twist until it was happening.
No, I'm only going to.
But,
I'm giving. You're
it's quite minor in comparison, and like it's kind of fun if you don't guess the twist, I guess, because then you're like, hey, saving people. But no, I saw it just because he'd mentioned he'd had wives, so I was expecting to see wives one way or another, either as like rugs, skeletons, troll servants, and like, oh, there they are, kind of thing. Yeah, which is kind of horrible, actually. Like, I really didn't like it. I was like, this is really horrible that not only did he kidnap women and force them to marry him, but the second they got annoying, he turned them into a mute troll and made them be his servants. That's really tragic and sad, and they must have family that miss them. And it remains a sore point for me as we get to the climax of the film, and I'll go into it then. But yeah, I don't know, it didn't sit right with me. I was like, I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
No, it's horrible. It's like kidnapping someone and keeping them in the cellar.
Yeah.
There's true crime like that. Obviously, you can't really turn someone into a troll, but you can take away their humanity, and you can take away their family and things like that, and hold them in servitude, which is what he's doing. Wenlock, like, so again, we talk about some of the other villains that we've had so far. Some of them are understandable. Some of them, that maybe their methods are a bit twisted, but you can see where they're coming from. Some of them are pathetic. Wenlock is without any. There's no justification for anything he does.
There's nothing.
And if you're going to strip away the Barbiness of this and the fantasy aspects, and just think about what he is doing, he is reprehensible.
He's like the worst villain.
He really is. It's again, you could read too much into this. Maybe I am, but he is. He's as bad as Bluebeard, who to me is the ultimate bad guy in the bad male character in any fairy tale, where he literally marries women and chops their heads off. And
then keeps their bodies in a cellar.
I mean, oh God, I still remember that picture in my fairy tale book as a kid. I mean, it's just like horrendous.
Yeah.
Let alone the satirical issues with the blue beard. But Wenlock's also played for laughs throughout the whole film.
Yeah, they really tried to give him this like 90s Hades Scar vibe, but what he's doing is so horrible, and even his own justifications when we find out later, because we know that he's stolen the magic from somewhere, and that he's using a lot of it to change his life. But
But we never find
I
out
mean,
where
that's been going
from.
on for years.
Yeah, and we know he's. Yeah, I mean, there's 4 women that
Transformed.
that we know of.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Oh, and the villagers.
Yeah.
What other crimes has he committed?
Just out of
Half his
boredom.
half his crimes we've seen in real time. So
Yeah.
one assumes he's been doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah, I don't like Wenlock at all.
no. And like, I don't know if I don't like him, but he's good. He's a good villain. Or I don't know if I don't like him as a villain either. Like, I really can't make my mind up about it, because we have a whole scene that, like, considering the Wand of Light was like, bam, 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 we've got the Wand of Light, let's go. We then sneak into Wenlock's place, which lasts like 20 minutes of them just like sneaking up staircases. And like, I tried to get tense, and it was a bit tense in places, but it did get to a point where I was like, can we please go and kill Wenlock now? And we finally get, and Ken has this fight with the Griffin where he's yeeted off the balcony to his death. And then the fucking wand wasn't even made properly in the first place because the gem has come loose and goes into the ocean. And I don't know why they're doing it. Are they doing it to make us do the like, oh, Barbie's lowest point or whatever? Because she's already been killed by an avalanche. Why didn't he turn her into a troll?
Yeah,
Why?
that's what he did with the other women. Yeah,
Why bury her under an avalanche that she survived very easily?
and also, do you know, if this had been a Disney film, and I'm not huge on Disney films, I've got to be honest with you, but there would have been some real menace. This would have been in the middle of a thunderstorm, and there would have been dramatic music, and the Griffin's beak would be shining, and there'd be a glint in its eye, and you really have thought that Aidan had died. And I didn't. This is the mainframe
Instead we were
models are
all...
not don't work when you need action.
Yeah.
And you could
It's
do
true.
it with different angles and different lighting and different music, but they
And I
don't really
think they
do that.
tried. They tried to make this a good action climax, but the minute Ken was off, I felt nothing. I was like, and then the minute the gem was off, I was like, okay, cool, Ken will get it.
Yeah.
Like, and I know that's because I'm an adult that watches a lot of movies, but I feel even as a child, you wouldn't. You're right. The atmosphere's not there. The mise en scene's not there. They're not building you up to a climax of like excitement and action. They're just sort of going through the motions of what they feel ought to happen because they've reached the climax of the movie. And immediately Wenlock takes the wand out of Annika's hand, so immediately you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, like, and then hands it to one of his trolls, who then Annika tries to convince is like, hey, this is going to help all of us. I've realised who you are, and this is going to save you as much as it's going to save me. But Wenlock's standing there going, give me the wand, when he'd previously just magicked it out of Annika's hand and into the wand's hand, into the troll's hand. So why didn't he just magic the wand out of the troll's hand now? Do you know what I mean? There was too many inconsistencies that I couldn't buy into the tension or the story as much as I desperately wanted to. And again, I thought the troll was going to take the vengeance, which would have been fun, but no, I think she had to give it back to Annika, who then used the power of love to break all the spells. And of course that means that the palace starts disintegrating and the trolls turn back into women, and Wenlock himself has been lying about his looks. He's actually like a shallow, ugly man, and like
so he looks like Leonard.
This
is one for the older. He looks like Leonard Rossiter in The Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin. So and again, you can go and Google that, but that's who he looks like, and that's really, so he's transmogrified himself for the past few years to be this douchey baggy thing. Again, yeah, just a layer of okay, I kind of get that. And
it's very shallow.
and he is, but isn't that the point? I guess he is very shallow. But
Yeah,
but
like his
but
whole thing is that it's shallow, but it means that the whole movie feels quite shallow.
it does, because there's a darkness it can't quite tap into, and
Yeah, that it wants to,
I don't know if that's
but it
because the
can't.
writing's not quite there, or that because it's a Mattel Barbie movie, they can't go to some places that would be
This is the
interesting.
thing, like why couldn't Annika have been turned into a troll? Because if she'd been turned into a troll and taken back to Wenlock's palace, then Aidan and Brietta would have had to have found her courage back in her human form and gone with Aidan to fight Wenlock.
Yeah, and there's so much like that. We've talked about over this time. Wouldn't it be good if they'd done 10 minutes here, 20 minutes there, not bothered with that there?
Yeah.
And
They had such a good story
there's
that they just didn't. The lack of consistency is what makes it quite weak.
and there's characters here. There's I mean, we were joking about spending 16 years as a horse, but then if Annika had spent 6 minutes as a troll, then she'd have
Yeah.
had something to touch base with her sister in. I said, "Oh my God, I couldn't
Yeah.
stand that for 6 minutes. What must it have been like for you for 16 years?"
Yeah.
The
And then throw in like a horse pun. Everyone laughs.
oh yeah, there's not enough horse jokes at all
Not
in the
enough
film.
horse
But
jokes.
and again, Shiva has done nothing.
Oh my God, so useful. Like like fell after, because they bring back the ice skating where they have to ice skate into the palace, and Shiva accidentally falls down and follows them.
I'd
But for
forgotten
like
about that.
no,
I'd
like
forgotten
no,
about that.
I was like, oh okay, so Shiva's gonna like do something, and the idea is that because Shiva loves gems, Shiva found the wand of light, but Annika just needed to turn around and she would have found the wand of light.
Yeah, I forgot
Like-
the assault
like-
on Castle Wenlock was done by ice skate. Oh my God. Yeah.
Which was really cute in a way, because it progressed Ken and Barbie's relationship, where she was like, stay close to me and try and keep up, and he'll go, and he was
No,
like, oh, I'll give it my best.
you
And then it turns out
misunderstand.
he's a really good ice skater, and she's like, oh, he is giving it his
No,
best. And I'm like, this is
wasn't-
fun.
I
I
wasn't-
like this.
I wasn't actually having to go at that. I kind of liked assault on Castle Wenlock on ice skate. It's just of all the things.
Imaginative.
Yeah, because you're right. Because it sets us up at the beginning, from the beginning, where we see that Barbie is a cross-country ice skater. Not a thing, kids, by the way. Um, but it gave her and Aiden something in common, and
Yeah.
and within the confines of the movie, it made sense. So much of this movie seems underwritten or not thought about enough, or just with an inch further could have been magnificent. That is one bit which I'm all right with. I'm all right with
Yeah.
It's stupid, but I'm all right with it within the confines of the film.
Fun,
Yeah.
I think, is the word you're looking for.
Yeah, that's when you look in my dictionary, the definition of fun is it's stupid but acceptable.
Yeah.
That's what Stephen defines fun as.
It's really fun, and like, yes, then they do, the minute they take the ice skates off, everything sort of grinds to a halt. And they spend ages trying to not be spotted by the griffin, and then out of nowhere the griffin just like sees them. Like there's no like event, there's no like dun dun dun. It's very like, we've got to not be caught by the griffin. Quick, hide. Okay, we've not got to be caught by the griffin. Quick, hide. And then the griffin seeing them isn't like a dum dum. Ah! Rah! Oh no! It's just like a, oh, there they are. Boof.
Yeah, I kind of
I'm
like the
gonna eat
griffin,
you.
by
And
the
you're
way.
like, love the griffin.
I think the griffin,
Love a griffin. Full stop.
griffin or
Love this
gryphon
griffin.
or whatever that
Can I get the griffin as a plush? Magic of Pegasus.
I would like that.
I can't. Why can I never get the griffin as a plush?
Is it a cat? Is that what?
Yeah.
So we
So
turn
when
that later.
when he's undoing,
Yeah, it's a cat. Which again, oh my God, I'm a cat that's lived many, many years as a horse eagle,
Yeah.
and now I'm
It's
going
so
back to be a
good.
cat again. I mean, what's it like? I mean, cats.
And it doesn't even have any loyalty to Wenlock.
No.
It just runs away.
well, because he's no longer a giant horse eagle. But yeah, I really like that. But I would have liked him. I would have liked a bit more than just a random black cat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it would have been cool if that had been, I don't know, the long lost love of the Rayla.
Yeah.
Or something more than that, because that's a fan.
Something that fitted in
Because
to the plot a bit more.
because actually some of the hold on, my Siri's going crazy. One of the things I am still critical of is that some CGI isn't quite there. And now I know it's Mainframe Entertainment and the time it was made. I understand it's a TV company that's being asked to do sort of
Movies,
feature
basically.
length stuff, which they'd normally do for 20-minute cartoons.
Yeah.
And some of the characters just don't quite work. Do you know what I mean? Especially the more fantastical characters they struggle with. And we'll talk about that more in the next film, where there's one they particularly struggle with. But I thought the Griffin was done magnificently.
So cool.
I thought,
Like, why couldn't the
visualizing.
Griffin have been one of the, like, Pegasus ponies? Because then at least it's like a winged thing into a winged thing, light to dark.
What
again.
if Brianna had replaced the missing Pegasus, which is why she had a place in Cloud Kingdom.
Yeah, which is why she had a place in Cat City. Yes.
Again, God, we'd fucking rewrite the shit out of this, wouldn't we?
It'd be so good because it's already so close. All of it's there. All the components are there. It just tweaks every now and then, just little tweaks. And the fact that they paint the sunset came into play, where they were trying to hold back the sunset, which is a really fun concept. I love it when people are like, do everything you can to slow it down while I get to the thing. Like, I really like that as a trope. And they're like, we gotta paint the clouds so slowly so the sun doesn't think to rise, because otherwise it'll be too late. We gotta do all we can. And that's really fun. But again, it was just so small, and it was used as like a joke where she was like, ugh. She's like, try and go much slower because we need Annika to get to the palace before sunset. And she's like, if I go any slower, I'll fall asleep.
But
Lilac has beaten you to it.
Isn't the hole there? Why
and you're like,
if you
wow.
if you don't paint it at all, it won't happen.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think the sun does what the sun is going to do. I don't think they have control over the sun. I think they can just make it last a bit longer or go
it's
quicker.
Bullshit. It's bullshit. Again, it's something that hasn't really been thought about. But
why are they making fucking jokes? Like,
yeah, I know.
I'm sorry. Are you gonna fall asleep? Blush. Fuck you.
However, for the first time ever, the Shelly Kellys do something.
Yes, that's true.
They now have some agency, something about their other than just look creepy,
and wise beyond their years,
or dirty girls. They're now, they're actually adding to the climax of the story, even if it doesn't really add up at all.
Yeah.
So I'm all right with that. Well, am I all right with that? This is about as all right with Shelly Kelly as I'm going to get, I think.
Yeah. We've peaked with Shelly Kelly. Yeah, and then, everyone... Oh, God, okay, yeah, so pulling the pin back out of the troll wives, I was not okay with it, and then Annika rightly says, you're free now, run, or, like, maybe we should summon you up a pony taxi, because, we're apparently nice people, but we didn't bring you a winged horse. Like, you're free now, run, and they're like... Actually, we have some unfinished business to do. And you're like, what? And they go towards Wenlock, like almost pulling up their sleeves and cracking their knuckles. So I'm like, okay, I can deal with that. They're going to give him a black eye, and then they're going to go home because they've been traumatized for 16 years. That's fine. I'm fine with that. And then later on we see that they're still with him. They're on an iceberg that he's just paddling in the ocean, and they're like... You're going to need to buff my nails. It's like, what's wrong with you? Go home. What are you doing? Beat him up and then leave. Why are you staying around and making him be your servant? Like, that's not fun or cool or interesting. I really didn't like it. I
No,
was like,
I
go
agree
home.
that. I mean, is there an element of Stockholm syndrome about it? I don't know. And for them to be so shallow to say, like I think you're right. They do say buff my nails or paint my nails or something. You're like, really?
Yeah, of
That's
all the
your idea of
things.
revenge?
Yeah, like
Um,
literally.
and you're actually in
And I think,
peril here. Like you say, you're on a fucking iceberg in the middle of nowhere in a fantasy kingdom with Leonard Rossiter. Um, this doesn't feel like a happy ending for you guys. It doesn't feel like
no.
the only thing is you're not mute trolls anymore, but you might
Yeah,
as well be.
yeah,
Um, Weird because I get the sense of revenge. I'm all right that they. There's two ways you could go with that. You could just leave him to it and go off and go back to your families or whatever, or they do that they pay back the cruelty, which can happen. Yeah, that being a troll for 16 years or however long it is
yeah,
may have an effect on you, in a but to remain in a perilous position and be so, I can't do the girly laugh like you did, but paint my nails is just like, really, that was frankly you were more interesting as trolls,
yeah,
and
yeah.
that shouldn't
And
be
I
what I'm taking away from this.
and if they'd remained as trolls, if they were just troll slaves that then got agency,
Mm.
then I could imagine the like, you can stay and boss him around. Like, enjoy that. But you're women with lives and families. Why are you still here?
Mm.
I don't like it.
No, I agree.
But yeah, so they head back to their normal kingdom, and we have classic, like, I always struggle with this as well, like Tangled syndrome, where the person who hasn't been seen by the mum and dad for 16 years turns up, and everyone's just sort of like, oh, yay, a hug. It's like, you have got no idea who I am, what I've been through. And I know now's not the time to discuss that, but it always just makes it out as if it's so easy to just slot back into family life,
I
having
mean,
been
it's
a
not.
magical pony for 16
Well,
years.
obviously, I've never been the magical pony, but lots of people don't see their relatives for 10 years, 20 years at a time, and reintegrating is hard. And there would have been a reason, maybe. Very few people's reason I've been turned into a magical, sexy flying horse. But there may be some reasons that, or just meeting friends again. The friends I was at
Yeah.
uni with 30 years ago. You know, your lives. I may have been a sexy horse, but they haven't been, and they've had a life, and they've had experiences and things like. You can't just connect because you happen to be someone's
This is the
parent.
thing. They always just sort of hug,
Mm,
and everything's like fine. And I'm like, it's not fine. All of you need to go to therapy right now.
mm.
But they're fine. And not once are they like, so you've met Brietta? We were totally gonna tell you about her, but we didn't for 16 years.
And we see now we're
But
wrong,
you
so
seem okay.
that's okay. We're having a bedroom converted to a stable, just
Just in case.
But yeah, and yeah, and there's a lot of, oh, now you see why we were so protective over you, and
Yeah, and
so,
it's like, not valid. Not valid.
no, it
Still
all
not
falls
valid.
apart. But you got to remember that Barbie in this one, she's such a fucking cheerleader in this one for everything.
So true.
There would be no sort of self-doubt, recrimination, or
They do
analysis.
try to apologize. They're like, we're so sorry we
Mm.
never told you. And she's like, I'm sorry that I never read your fucking mind about the daughter you had before me that was magically transformed into a horse, and that's why you never let me go ice skating. Like, Barbie really isn't in the wrong here.
No,
Like, how the fuck was she to know?
Yeah, you just like so beautifully that absolutely the passive aggressive nature response that it should have got isn't,
But
and
instead she was like, I'm sorry that I
I was a bit of a brat yesterday.
didn't want to not go ice skating.
I'm sorry I stamped my foot and
Yeah.
snuck out to a party, which ended up with you guys getting turned to stone. So maybe there was a little bit of her that's thinking, You have had to spend
Yeah,
a
it's
couple of
just
days as a statue,
super
but there's a
guilty.
lot this family need to
Yeah.
unpack.
Oh my god, so much therapy for everyone. Therapy for all.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah. But yeah, and then Aiden meets up with his dad, who again is like, I don't give a shit that you have a gambling problem. I'm just happy that you're alive. Where have you been? Fucking hell, Aiden. Like, we didn't intend for you to, like, fuck off. We just gave you some pocket money. Jesus. Anyway, it's fine. because he's
Overreact
got
much, Aiden.
Yeah. Good God, your mother's in bits, Aiden.
We're only blacksmiths. How much money could it have been?
You didn't have to run away, Aiden. But like, it's quite nice that we don't have a wedding scene.
No.
They just sort of are linked arms, and he's like, "I'd like you to meet someone," and they're taking it slow. And then they go up to the Cloud Kingdom, and they have some ice skating shenanigans, which again I didn't take as a wedding. I just took as like a cute thing.
Well, a bit like Swan Lake, isn't it, where they have their...
Yeah.
Or was it the Nutcracker they had?
Yeah, even the Nutcracker, where they have their little dance.
Bizarre little dance at the end. Because that's how it happens in life. You know, you go through adventures, and when you have your little dance at the end, you know it's time for the fin to come up, or the end, or something like that. That's the lesson for any viewer here.
And then, very happy to see the return of the bloopers.
Yeah, well,
a lot of the bloopers are dedicated to Ollie, the giant, who the joke is, as it always is, because the giant in the movie is like, Ollie, eat food now. Really, the actor talks like this and did 12 years of theatre and is now broken into movies and is having to say these silly lines.
I'm rather trained.
Very frustrating.
I'm rather trained, love. Yeah,
3 years at RADA for this kind of thing, which, you know, never gets old. Big fan of it. And it made me really like the character more. I was like, hey!
I have to... I feel a bit the same. In the context of the film... The whole Ollie thing was fucking pointless to me. I know it turned her ribbon into the wand, but it was a bit
it
like...
It was a little fairy tale moment,
but
wasn't it? It was like a witchy Hansel Gretel bit.
But it didn't seem to fit in the rest of the film. There's so much this film's tried to fit in. I'm not... Yeah. I didn't see it, but then they put him in the credits. Obviously, they liked him. and he gets more than his fair share of blooper moments, which are quite funny at times. No, they are quite funny.
They are quite funny. There's a bunch of bloopers with Shiver, which I didn't care for, but then it's the like cinematographer and the director's voices being like, "Can we get the bear off the camera, please?" Which is quite funny. And then a cue. It didn't quite play well. They didn't quite get the animation on point enough to carry the joke, but the idea of the sort of actors breaking down with laughter in scene. During a serious moment, which is it was fun, and it was an A+ for an attempt.
Yeah, that's when he had the clown nose on, right? And they were trying to. It was. I have to admit, I like pseudo bloopers.
I love them. I think everyone should make much more of an effort to put them in most movies.
Yeah, it's I love
especially kids' movies. Like, I love this idea of animated characters being actors, and obviously Pixar did it first. They did it best. The Bugs Life bloopers are the best bloopers ever. But I love that. I love that concept.
It's also a brilliant way of getting kids to watch the movie to the end. So what you'll find with 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, they can get bored. Or they might not watch it all the way through, which means you're not getting your maximum selling of Barbie dolls. But I think, you know, if your parents have bought you this DVD, you want them to watch the whole fucking thing because you want 74 minutes to go and have a cup of tea with your friends or whatever it is. And if they know that there's these bloopy bits in the end, they'll go through and they'll watch that over and over because they'll get it. Kids are smart. And but there's a reason they're in Pixar movies as well. You know, it's just a little wink to both the adults in us who are having to sit there watching it, but also to make the kids watch to the end of the story. So I'm cool with that.
Big fan. I hope they stick around. In terms of the toys, we've mentioned you can get a plush Shiver, which is terrifying as you'd expect. You can get all of the Barbie dolls. None of the villains. Again, they don't market the villains. Which I know I've said before, and I will say again. Because you can get Rayla, the Cloud Queen. You can get
Really?
Brietta as a horse
I mean,
and as a person.
Rayla's barely in it.
Yeah, she's in like 2 seconds of the movie, but you can get her. She's quite popular. She's all over eBay. You can get there's a shit ton that you. Brietta is a beautiful Barbie. She's got this like red hair and this pink dress with this fluff and that like shimmery material. Mwah. Great. You can obviously get the Wand of Light. You could probably at the time have gotten like a human-sized Wand of Light as well that almost definitely had buttons that went like in the name of love or whatever.
I love shit like that, I've got to say.
Yeah, big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan. You wanna be pressing those buttons through the plastic in Toys R Us until the battery runs out.
Oh yeah. And you want to?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're giving me flashbacks.
So good. Obviously you can get a Barbie that rides the pony, the Pegasus. You can get the different outfits. Her like purple dress turns into her like ice skating outfit. Like lava double costume. The Ken doll is a little frightening, but it's fine. He's not important. He comes with a plastic shiver. And just the whole vibe, the like look of the boxing and the stuff is great. It's great.
Yeah. And again, you can play with My Little Ponies at the same time, I guess, and you could mix your toys up, couldn't you? I know My Little Ponies isn't. Is My Little Pony Mattel as well? I don't think it is, but
I don't think
it should be. But you know, having cross-play with your toys is also, I think,
it's so important.
Quite important, the ability so that you don't have to necessarily buy 2 of these. So I'm all right with it. I mean, the horses are a bit overly sexual, but there's a whole bestiality groove going through this film, which actually, when I watched it, was the worst thing about this film. Now we've talked about it, it's about number 4.
I know, and like I'm so annoyed because I honestly did really enjoy this movie. It was so close to being perfect, and it just didn't quite get there. There were so many good things that could have just been a little bit better with a little bit more thought behind them. And that's such a shame because I really did enjoy it.
I really enjoyed it, and I think the frustration I have is that it could have been the best Barbie movie of all time. If not for just a little bit of carelessness. And what I'm beginning to see is clearly they're working on 2 of these every year now. And there's now this divergence between, there must be 2 different teams working on things.
Right.
And because we'll see next episode is another Fairytopia. And then the next one,
back to the kingdom of Fairytopia.
Whereas the next one, I think, isn't. And then the next one is. And so I think there's probably an urge to start churning these things out. The golden days have gone, right? The real money makers are gone. Now these things are making decent buck, but they are what they are now. And I feel that they're being
not trying as hard.
They're pushing them out a bit. And the frustration with this one is there is so much here to build on. There's so much here. If this was the only one they did in a year, and they did a couple more drafts of the story. Obviously, a lot of the stuff we talked about is a bit postmodern and not really taking place in a Barbie movie in 2005. But there are things that you just think we could do without that. We could do a bit more of this. The Wenlock Troll Brides thing is a huge misstep at the end, and I think if someone had gone through it again and done a bit of feedback, actually that doesn't really work for us. People want to know what's happened to Ferris. There's just little things. And
little things to tie it up, and a world as well that they could have expanded, much like Fairytopia. Like I'd have been happy to stay in this world a bit longer if they'd have just, if we have this idea of the Cloud Kingdom.
And I don't think, again, neither of us watched it in 3D. And there are clearly moments, especially flying moments, where 3D, you can see where they're doing
mainly
it.
The fucking polar bear, like, coming towards you with fucking lipstick.
And I didn't feel, there are some films which are, I know 3D as a thing has has had its recent, it comes and goes, doesn't it, over time,
Yeah.
and the period of 3D that this belongs to is probably a little bit of before every fucking movie and TV was in 3D, and they've given up
Yeah.
on that now. So there's a little bit
Yeah.
before that, and it's looking for it. But there are films of things like, have you seen Coraline?
Yeah.
Which in 3D, or Monsters vs.
Oh,
Aliens is another one, funnily enough, which the 3D improves. And again, children's
yeah.
films.
I don't think I could watch Coraline in 3D. I think I would be too afraid.
Yeah, I saw it at the cinema in 3D and I thought it was one of the most marvellous things ever. But I hear you. Monsters vs. Aliens is another sort of, it's a kind of rote CGI movie. I mean, it's quite high quality. But because they do things with depth as well as height, well as things pushing out of the screen, it's things pushed back in. It turns a kind
That's
of
cool.
fun concept, makes use of it. I mean, Coraline absolutely does that. And but I didn't feel there was anything. I didn't think I missed anything other than some
No.
little set pieces where like you say, where Shiver was sliding along and sometimes the horses were flying out of the screen.
Yeah.
So again, that died a death. I don't think any
It's
more.
a gimmick.
I don't think any more on 3D. And the 3D revolution was going for at least 10 years. So
Yeah.
they started and they didn't continue.
And they gave up.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a shame. We have a credit song. It's called Hope Has Wings.
And
And it's fucking sung
by Brie
by
Larson.
fucking Brie Larson. Oscar winner Captain Marvel sings the credits song for Barbie and the Magic of Pegasus.
So I didn't know this. I had to look up this. So this is before she was an actress.
Yeah.
They were trying to make her a singer. And
She was like Hilary Duff,
yeah,
Kelly Clarkson, like mid 2000s, like emo hair, plays guitar, too many bracelets.
I had no
singer.
idea. I had no idea that's what she was. And it's all right, isn't it?
It's brilliant. She's great.
It's but the song isn't horrible at
No.
all. But I had no idea she had this prior career. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I
Me
didn't
neither.
really know of her before Room. Is it Room?
I
Is that
knew
the
her
one
from Scott Pilgrim.
I don't remember her being in Scott Pilgrim, which is a film
and
I need to
21
go
Jump
back and look.
Street.
And yeah, I never really watched them. But
Oh, fair.
in fact, I think maybe even I didn't really super see her until Skull Island, to be honest with you. But obviously she won the Oscar for Room, didn't she, as Best Actress, and she's done
Yeah.
some television stuff. But to find out that, yeah, she sang the
She
song
had
for
a
this.
little pop star career.
I think this is probably the best her career went, wasn't it? It doesn't sound like she was particularly into it as maybe some. I think Hilary Duff is a very good example for you. But there's no Brie Larson Disney TV show, is there?
No.
As far as I know. But that's nice. It's nice. It's a nice little extra on this one.
Yeah. Fun little fact.
Yeah,
And please use this as an opportunity to go and look up Brie Larson's career, because that woman, there's no such thing as a fucking overnight success, and bloody hell.
No, she had, yeah, and it like I was saying, I've only noticed her fairly recently, but my God, that woman
She's been there.
she's put in the hard yards,
Been
hasn't
there the
she?
whole time.
And she deserves all her success,
She really does. She seems really lovely as well.
which always helps. But
Yeah.
she's an actress, she might be faking it. She could be
Okay.
evil, like all actresses.
Yeah, could be Scientology.
Elizabeth Moss, we're looking at you, right?
Oh man, all the way through watching it, I was like, I think this is gonna hit the top 3.
Do you know
But I don't know that I can let it.
when we started this episode, in my head, it was 3 or 4 for me. And then as we've discussed it, and funnily enough, hit a lot, as we keep doing, we keep hitting some of the same notes of frustration about,
Yeah.
and I think I'm going to have to knock a point off because of the opportunities lost. It's really fucking solid, right? There's so much about this movie to love. in the context of the Barbie films, but there are so many missteps and there are so many questions that I have, and that and
But there's so much that makes up for it. Like, I'm just looking at the leaderboard, and the characterizations are awesome. A lot better than a lot of the early movies. And the concepts are way cooler, and they should be rewarded for that.
I for me, it's number 4.
Oh, thank God. I was going to say number 4.
So,
thought you were going to try and put it at 5 or 6.
7 films in a row,
4.
we've agreed. Obviously, the first one was easy because we were but I think Fairytopia is just a bit better than it, because we had a huge problem with Fairytopia.
This is the thing, I was trying to remember.
But we had
Fairytopia, because I was like, surely this was better than Fairytopia.
No, I think Fairytopia laid the seeds when we wanted to come back. Yeah, and we know we're coming back. We had a huge problem with Fairytopia in the sort of the able-bodied, disabled thing,
the ending.
But the rest of it was hugely enjoyable.
Yeah, that's very true. Whereas lots of little things.
Whereas, what is number 4 at the moment? For the moment is oh, hello.
4 was Rapunzel. I've updated.
You have. I was looking at the Google Doc and it changed as I was talking. And as you know, Rapunzel I have many more problems with. So Rapunzel is.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think back to Rapunzel, and I just remember the characterizations being quite bland.
And obviously, Gothel. You know, at least Wenlock. I understand. Wenlock wants. But I understand Wenlock as a bad guy.
And to be surrounded by hotness.
Yeah, I get it. You want to be better than you are, and you want this perfect woman to do you, but it's never going to work because you're all being fake about who you are. And he's genuinely evil and doing genuinely evil things, whereas Gothel just stupid. She's from a different era of bad guy, which wonderfully acted.
Yeah.
Wonderfully animated, but frankly, what the fuck was her plan again? So I think it fits quite nicely between Fairytopia and
Rapunzel.
And Rapunzel. I think it gives us some wiggle room. I don't think it's going to end up there.
No.
But I do feel we've been really harsh on it, because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Same.
And actually, the reason I enjoyed it quite possibly was because I could see so much more going on.
Yep.
And just a couple of little bits of disappointment, but it's close. But I'm pretty certain that it'll end up it'll almost certainly end up in the top 10, I imagine.
Yeah,
which is fair enough. And then watching them in order, we may one day go back and say, well, actually, was one like that good? But I'm happy with number 4.
Yeah.
But it does make it sound more average than it is, which I think is going to be fixed. I think it's going to be fixed in the big picture.
Yes, yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it's still early days.
It is.
Early days. So still our top 3. At number 3 is Fairytopia. At number 2 is Swan Lake. And at number 1 is The Princess and the Pauper. Which... it's going to be really tricky to knock that off the top spot, I'm going to say now.
I think those top 2 are going to be interesting. I think there's going to be a huge fight for number 3. Although...
I almost feel like I need to go back and watch Swan Lake. Do you know what I mean? I worry that I'm
Have we over-egged it?
Yeah.
No, I think you got to remember you had Kelsey Grammer, you had Maggie Wheeler, you had strange little animal people, that whether they were people or animals or not. You got a nice great dresses, a nice enclosed story, and yeah, I know. I think I'm all right with Swan Lake where it is for now. But I do feel what we should allow ourselves is a moment of reappraisal every so often, just to jiggle things around to say, well, actually, I think we've done Magic of Pegasus. Because I think we both really enjoyed it, and we're feeling really bad. It's only number 4.
So good, and I feel bad putting it 4th. I think that's still fairly solid.
But if it ends up 4 out of 40, that's very different to 4 out of 8, isn't it?
That's very true.
Which I think is probably what's no.
4 out of 7 at the moment.
Yes. Is it only out of 7?
Yeah.
Crikey, yeah. Well,
this was the 6th movie, but of course we did Barbie and the Rockers.
Yeah,
so.
that's true. So 4 out of 7 sounds terrible. But
yeah.
But what we've got to remember is they've been so freaking strong.
Yeah, they really have.
Yeah.
I'm very excited because next time we're going to Barbie Fairytopia : Mermaidia. So following the Fairytopia tale, as it were. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, in our second of 3 Fairytopia movies.
Yeah.
Although apparently, I think Mariposa lives there as well.
Yes.
So there's 2 more of them. Mate, there's so many.
I'm so excited.
I'm kind of excited about Barbie and the Secret Door, which is one I don't think I have. And
I'm really excited for Barbie in the pink shoes because I feel like it's going to want to be like a red shoes vibe.
Oh my god, and if it's as dark, if Barbie throws herself...
If Barbie throws herself under a train, that goes straight to number 1.
Or at the very least, if her feet bleed to turn her shoes pink, that would be... Yeah, that we're a long way off that yet. Also, there is also Barbie Princess Charm School, and of course, Charm School is often code for one of these places where they turn female agents, spies, into agents to go into other places. I just love the idea.
Now I'm expecting that.
If it's like, well, I think you'll find the Black Widow film's going to be about that when it comes out. Is that Natalia went to charm school, but the charm school is how to be American and stuff like that. And if Barbie does become an assassin in Barbie Charm School, I'm afraid somehow I think not. And also I've got to keep misreading Barbie the Pearl Princess. But no, frustrating one, that one, because I think we both enjoyed it. But next time, we'll be back in Fairytopia, and I hope it'll be less controversial.